Good evening on what is a cool, grey and overcast day. It is Wednesday, the 29th of June, and I have an interesting little package to unbox. And if I show you that, you'll have some idea of what's in here. I know I am looking forward to this, because I have enjoyed every issue of Nook I've seen so far, which of course is 2, so I'm hoping this will be volume 3. So let's get this one open. Okay. Almost there. Try not to cut myself. So, and we have, yep, Nook 3. Now, this describes itself as a sort of like an old school Renaissance bric-a-brac, and it is essentially an old school Renaissance miscellany. It is collections of monsters, house rulings, dungeons, adventures, ideas, thoughts, all to do with the old school Renaissance, and it makes for interesting reading because it kind of captures sort of like the feel of what that aspect of the hobby is like at the moment that it is published. So here we go. Interesting, it's such a counter of adventures in some great cavern, which has strange teeth-like protuberances from the cave ceiling and floor, with even sort of like strange bat-like eyes right at the back down the uvula. So we open up, and inside we have a die drop character backstory generator. Pick up your die, drop it on the table, into the background. And as before, if I take off the cover to the book, you will find that we have The Valley of the Desert Hound, which is an adventure. Essentially, it's a dust jacket adventure. So, basic background there. More details, adventure location there, nice little map, and then stats and various location descriptions there, all the way round to a liberal archaeology table. So this is essentially a classic sand crawl, exploring an area, ruins of the past, and seeing what you might find. Inside, though, we have frontispiece. Before we get into forward, don't even have a look at the page of contents yet. I can see essentially that the page of contents is going to be jammed, packed with content. You just see that's just one page, all that there, lots and lots of it. Because it's actually quite a thick little book. I mean, if you were imagining this as rather there's an A4 or letter sized, it would be a lot slimmer, but this little digest size really does give it weight, and it's actually quite a thick, sturdy little tome. We begin with the stories, the campaign, not the characters. Essentially is essentially a short essay on the nature of your campaign, how important that is versus the characters. And then world building, grotesque, essentially adding elements to building your campaign or game around off-color elements, the weird and the wonderful. So that's quite a lengthy piece there. We have what happened to the bodies. Player characters often end up killing big monsters or large numbers of accumulated ones. For example, it wouldn't be unusual to have the PCs kill a dozen orcs in a confrontation. It asks the question, what happens to the bodies? Now, if you've got up against a necromancer or something like that, you know, then pretty obvious. Otherwise, what happens to the bodies? Nightmare on Lake 13 is essentially is horror, adding horror to your game. You know, above that and beyond the sort of like, you know, the idea that first level characters are really fragile and could die at any time. Picaro and the story of D&D. Essentially, again, looking at this, it seems sort of like a general theme of this issue, at least in the first few articles. It's sort of like looking at Dungeons and Dragons as sort of like as more than just a game, or looking at the form of the way it is played. And then we have one of those kind of I cut the body open tables, or you know, it's interesting, sort of like similar to the one in Merc Bourge, where you have the table of weapons, but they're all weapons being stabbed into the victim, so on. And then we have one of the sort of classic elements of Nook, which is tables, so D6 sites to stumble upon in the woods. So you've got a big table of random encounters. You know, again, just when you're short of ideas, when you need inspiration, roll or pick one. Fungus Amongst Us, Guide to Fungi in your Dungeons and Dragons style game, and then revisiting the domain game, and this is not domains in the sense of clerical domains, but as in getting to a certain level. And you now have the right as a 9th level fighter to establish a fort or a castle. So that's looking at that, and giving options and so on. So you are this is for high level play, and again that's carried on here with Meet the Boss, 7 thoughts on domain level play. And then beginning spell books. One of all you have is a hammer item-based problem solving. So that adding an element to gameplay and thinking about how to use your play character's equipment other than the most obvious. And then again, like the sites of things to see in the woods, around the wilderness in a deck of cards. So you really get 2 options here: rolling 2 6-sided dice and treating them as sort of like the equivalent of tens and units, or just drawing from a deck of cards. Slayer weapons, you know, basically weapons. To how to create interesting weapons, and then dealing with that old age question of sort of what to do now that your first level magic user has cast their one spell. Because in classic old school Renaissance play, your first level magic user has the single spell. Traditionally clerics don't even start playing with spells until they get to 2nd level, but at least they have the benefit of armor. So you know, as has actually happened in our Old School Essentials campaign, we have a wizard whose starting spell was a light, and he had 1 hit point, and he survived to 2nd level. He did roll another one for his hit points, which was hilarious. I have to admit, it was really, we killed ourselves laughing, because it was just sort of like, I said, yeah, what's the betting you're going to roll a 1 for your new hit points? And what was the betting? Oh, it happened. Anyway, so yeah, this is an article on what your wizard does next, and then D8 magical hairs. I know, just sort of like a random thing. The 7 draconic sins. So nice. I think it's a really nice piece of artwork, and then it's looking at sort of like how your dragons may be motivated. And then continuing that theme, how to play dragons. I like how they're putting these little themed groups together, and that's continued the sort with humanising our monster, essentially making the monster understandable. Again, great art. A lot of it is publicly sourced, but it's still really good. Yeah, so this is sort of almost continuing the theme, and then we come back at again the themes of sort of like referee running a game, and then the 10 Commandments of being a good referee. And most referees or game masters or dungeon masters have opinions upon this sort of thing, and these articles are generally you're either going to disagree with or basically or not, but they're usually something good and worthwhile looking at, just in case it's helpful. D12 folks together at the counter. Greetings, Innkeep. What news around here? Rumours to throw at your characters, player characters, when they go into the bar, because that's what What do you do? Oh, I'm going to the inn. Well, of course you are. That's you're an adventurer. Compelling arena fights. You've got that style of game where you have arena fights. How to make them interesting, and then D20 kids for your dungeons. Our dungeons and their surroundings are too often inhabited exclusively by adults. To remedy this, sprinkle your campaign with a measure of careless youth with the NPCs below. Unless otherwise stated, assume all kids are level 0 commoners. So yeah, what happens when children go down a dungeon? Fancy night generator? Yes, hello. Sorry, I am joined by Cat, who is not ours. It's a bit damp because it's got a bit that way. Dynamism and the generic optimum. Essentially, the generic optimum is the plan before it meets the enemy. So basically, again, dealing with kind of campaign play style and handling it at the table. And then one hit point monsters. It's not just rats and centipedes. Great, just adding detail and flavour. And fantastically, it's followed by another article in praise of vermin. I really like the way they're kind of pairing these articles up. And then Blood Moon, what happens on a Blood Moon once every 17 years, so on. Again, fueling your campaign with an event, and then the ecology of gold. Essentially, arguably the most important substance that you might think of in the game, because you're trying to get that to improve your character. Tables of weirdos, and then when not to kill a player character. D8 weird kobold weapons, and this things are like, what are my rations? Well, I really kind of like that's going to go. Oh yeah, you pick out your rations. What is that? What are they? I remember in one role-playing game where I was playing a fairly clueless student. All the soldiers sort of packed themselves with iron rations, and the clan aunties packed me with something for the packed lunch, and I had sort of like little morsels and pots and nibbles and things, which was fun. The more the merrier. Running games with large groups. So advice on that. Sunrise over the Black Lake. Things within or around the lake tainted by evil. So basically, so essentially you've got the lists, and lists in this kind of situation are much more useful than your average listicles. Making rats interesting, explicable things found in a dungeon, flavour, detail, inspiration. What are those sturges doing? Sturges are a horrible monster if you're low level. Hopefully this will make them more interesting than just murder sturges. Hobbies and quirks for your monsters. And here's a nice bit of history. Genoa Jacques, The Caverns of Thracia, Appreciation Critique and DM User Guide. Now this isn't actually as such in print, but it is coming soon, so relatively soon, as part of Goodman Games' Original Adventures Reincarnated series. Goodman Games is already going to do Dark Tower, which I'm really looking forward to. But here we have sort of like a new version of the Caverns of Thracia, re-envisioned until such times as that is out. So, and then D12 sword snake techniques. So if your player character is sort of like a particularly powerful sword wielders, you can enhance them with that. And then the Tartaros, a monster, one-eyed ogres and shepherds who haunt the hills. The wicked ensemble, an ominous drum can be heard from afar, so that's an encounter. And I like they've got a few more encounters and dungeons a bit more up front here. Basically discussion of types of magic, concrete magic by Paolo Greco, who has done various magic books for the old school Renaissance. 11 questions you need to answer about your ruins. Are you concerned about your ruins, madam? Right, have you had your ruins surveyed, sir? Play like it's 2022, so essentially this is an interesting article. Play like it's 2022. So what you have is a lot of questions. It says here is topic often discussed by Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition fans and veterans of 20th century editions alike is how to modify the engine of their favourite game to emulate old school role-playing games. For sake of discussion, it might be interesting to think about the reverse, moving towards 5th edition gameplay using the old school rules. That's interesting. That's really interesting. So I'm looking forward to see how that is dealt with. Complete the encounter. Lots of encounters in this book. Really helpful content. And then we have essentially another encounter, the Bugbear Witch, and My Goblins Are Halflings Gone Mad. Interesting take upon them. Less rules to do more. Almost the reverse of that previous article, which was looking at taking the old school Renaissance sort of towards 5th edition. This is, I get the whole thing of too many rules, strip them back. It wasn't like this in my day. Portfolio of topographic curiosities. Cartographic curiosities. So we've got a section on maps, gorgeous maps. I do like a good map. Or 2, or 3, or 4. And these here, you can just basically the game master can take these, populate them at her will and whim, and create something interesting using them. Sorry, no, off that. Come on. Oh, thank you. And then a menagerie of monsters. Again, accompanied by fantastic artwork, and homunculites, many little homunculi. Lots and lots of things. Tenacious helmets. Retinue of rogues is next. The Lost Droid, if you want to add a science fiction element to your campaign. There's certainly some campaign settings that should do that. The Rat Catcher, because you always want a rat catcher in your game. Don't know whether he comes with a vicious little dog. The Laser Mage, complete with roller skates. Very 70s. Then the Space Vampire, so it's getting weirder and weirder with some of these choices of classes. And then extraordinary excursions here. We have imprint. Basically an adventure in imprint. An adventure in the odious uplands. This is, I presume, it's got to be tied in with. This is, see, it's by Jason Schultes, who wrote a really fantastic dungeon whose name of which escapes me, but it was a science fiction kind of dungeon crossover, and was really fantastic. And essentially what it did, it enabled low-level characters to play a high-level dungeon. It was really clever. Titan Cliffs. So you're actually entering a Titan. Nexus of the Ix. Functional but not particularly interesting map. And Help Wanted, basically a list of rumours and hooks, which should keep you all busy. So yeah, that is, let me just put this all back together. Nook, issue 3, third issue of the magazine, which describes itself as the old school bric-a-brac. So thoroughly recommend. Really enjoyed reading all two of the issues so far. This looks to be as good as the previous ones, and if you're a fan of the old school Renaissance, you really do want to have this in. I mean, essentially as something to refer to, because it's just full of great ideas and interesting things to add to your game or ways to look at your game. So I do hope you have enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you want to add any feedback or commentary, appreciate you doing so. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a package or parcel containing a book or game, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea and cat that's not ours. Once again, thanks for watching. I'll be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.